Great, wonderful. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special Light the Torch ceremony where we honor the powerful launch of voices stepping out of darkness and into the light by Cheryl T. Campbell. This book is a soul-stirring journey of awakening, healing, and stepping fully into the light of who you truly are. If you've ever felt like the quiet one, the sensitive soul, or the seeker in a noisy world, Voices is your invitation to remember, rise, and reclaim your truth. Let's celebrate Cheryl today in this beautiful beacon of light together. Hi, Cheryl. How are
Hello.
you?
I'm really well. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. I'm really excited for you.
Thank
That this finally we have your book out, and this is a very exciting, season, time for you, I'm sure. So, just to start with, would you mind introducing yourself, telling us a little bit more about you? What made you want to write this?
the book actually was very, very long in the making. It kind of goes back to early childhood, but I am Cheryl Campbell, by the way. You asked me to introduce myself, and a little bit about me. I've actually had quite a interesting journey for a career. I started out in the hazardous waste field and left in the middle of the height of my career because I wasn't happy, and opened up my own business, and that physical business turned into my online career, which I've been working online since about 2009 or so. And I actually was first published in 2010 when I was featured in a book called New Masters of Online Marketing. And so that was an exciting period. And but this book, as I said, was a long time in the making because I've been through a lot of different adventures, so to speak. And it finally got to the point where I realized that it had to be shared because I'm pretty certain other people are going through it too. And if other people are going through it, why should they have to go through it as difficultly as I did when they can go with a little more grace if I share my story? And so that really was the catalyst for finally writing the book. I named it 2 years ago and then had no idea what I was going to write about until this past summer.
That's wonderful. But and I totally agree. A lot of people, I would say people go through similar events, similar situations, but if they can learn from other people's experiences ahead of time, then they can be more prepared, and then they don't have to go through it as difficult as other people have gone through it before because they've already learned from it. So it's really nice. What would you say your turning point is? The moment that you realized that your darkness was really annoying.
Well, it's interesting because, first of all, I want to clarify that darkness isn't a bad thing. Darkness is really just dealing with your shadows. And I have definitely come to realize that your darkness or your shadows are really only parts of you that are looking to be healed and addressed and not ignored anymore. And so when I look back at my own experience, I call it the awakening. It didn't happen for me in a single moment, although for a lot of people it does. It's like a something in life just happens, and all of a sudden they start questioning everything. For me, it was a slow, steady unraveling of the beliefs I had grown up with. And, you know, as I said, everybody's awakening is different, but the first step is always that question about, why are we here? We start seeing the world in a different way. And then somewhere along the lines, we realize that the information that we've been taught all of these years, we start to question, is it really true? So we start questioning our long held beliefs. And for me personally, that began when I was very young. I, used to go to church, for example. I used to go to church all the time with my family, and there was something comforting about the tradition of it and everything. But when I got a little bit older, I started questioning everything. I started questioning, if God is all about love, then why are we learning things based in fear? And I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but it's like, the whole church thing is just steeped in fear to me. And so, fear of going to hell, fear of sin, fear of this, just everything. And then I had an experience in my early teens when a beloved family friend was excommunicated from the church because she left an abusive family, situation. And she had put up with the abuse for years until it started affecting her children. And the first time her child was hit, that's when she left. And she was excommunicated for years until all of a sudden man decided that it was okay to change the canon laws. And I was like, wait a minute, if that's the word of God, what gives man the right to change it? So I just started questioning everything in more ways than once. And so for a certain part of me, I really think that long ago was the beginning of my awakening because I started questioning things. And it certainly didn't change my faith in any significant way as far as my spirituality is concerned. What it did was it changed my look at how I look at religion as a structured religion instead of just my relationship with God.
That's true. And sometimes it's all rooted into us being, wanted to fit in because this is everybody else's way of life. This is how they taught us. This is all that we know, and we think that for us to fit into that particular role, we'll just
Hmm.
continue on and you know kind of uh, shove off those questions that we have deep inside. What helped you reclaim your voice and start saying, these are my questions, and I'm gonna have to ask them. And how do you think others perceived you at that particular
Again, as I mentioned, it really was a long process for me, and I just always felt like it was, as I was growing up, that it was better for me to be silent and in the background and, never really speak my voice. And a lot of that stemmed from a really severe speech disorder that I had. And because of that speech disorder, obviously kids could be pretty mean. And so I was ridiculed a lot. But what made it even worse is there was a particular teacher that also found it somehow amusing to call me stupid and dumb and all of that in front of the entire class. And so I think that's when I just started shrinking, a little bit and being more silent, and trying to hide. And then when I did get up a little bit of courage in my later teens to really start being myself, that's when I started, being called I'll never forget this one, a whack job, and a little bit, the woo word was always out there. And again, I was just being me. It was my intuition that I would pop up and say something. Or I had what I call knowings. And so I would say something that to me was just a knowing. It was like no doubt in my mind that that is in existence. And some of those beliefs weren't accepted. And that's when I was called the whack job. And, so just, and all of that stuff hurts, and you also start incorporating it all into the very being of who you are, and you start listening to it and you start being it. And so I spent years, years, just believing you're stupid, you're dumb, you're lazy, and all of this other stuff. And, I don't think it was until maybe I was in my mid mid 30s that I really noticed how I was talking to myself. Have you heard the word or the term ants? Automatic negative thoughts.
Oh, yes,
All
yes.
right. So that's when I realized, oh my goodness. And I was driving home one day and I just got out of a meeting, and going through my head over and over again was, what an idiot you were. Next time, just keep your mouth shut, and blah, 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 and on and on. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What did I just say to myself? And that's when I really started realizing that the automatic negative thoughts, if we really embody them, that shapes who we are. And that's somebody I didn't want to be. And so I would say to anybody that is in even slightly the same situation, that you catch yourself with these thoughts that are, so negative and so mean. Like, you could be a really nice person and be really brutal to yourself. And so when you start catching them, you start changing who you are because you're changing them. And so anybody that's in that kind of a situation, if you can just catch your thought, and you don't have to do a drastic change, just catch it, observe it, and go, okay, is that really true? And start questioning yourself. And once you start that process, you find that you start coming out of, what you're hiding behind. You stop stepping away from fear, because that's all of that is fear. It's fear of failure, fear of success, fear of, being heard, fear of being seen. And so once we're aware of our thoughts and the way that we embody them, then we could start creating change to become the person that we really were meant to be.
Yes, that's true, and I think it's a generational pattern, right? This has started from the people that have been with us all these years, and we keep hearing things that are really nice about ourselves,
Hmm.
and so we kind of keep that to ourselves. What,
Hmm.
uh, what would you say would be a very good exercise in catching those acts and making sure that we try and start recognizing them so that we can do the shift and start our awakening journey?
Hmm. So really, as I mentioned, it's taken small steps. The first thing is just being aware of those negative thoughts. And when you're aware of them, as I said, it doesn't have to be a dramatic, like, oh my God, I have to stop doing this. You just have to start. And sometimes when you start, like, I know this happened to me, when I started catching a negative thought, I was trying to be aware of it. And then I'm like, all of a sudden I hear in my head, oh, for God's sakes, you're never going to be able to do this. You're just always going to talk. And okay, hold on, I'm doing it again. And so you have to catch it. You have to acknowledge it, and you have to reframe it. Say to yourself, what if that's not true? What if it's okay if I do this? And you just start working through it. And the generational stuff, that you mentioned, that it may not always be ours either. The generational stuff is really, really powerful, because that kind of, I'm going to call it training, because that is what it is. We get practiced at hearing the same thing all the time. It's almost like we're trained from the time we're, first born, that we hear this stuff, and you hear conversations and you hear comments and, some examples. It's like, the typical money issues, like, we can't afford that, or rich people are greedy, or eat everything on your plate. And all of that stems from our ancestors because it was their experiences. They lived through the tough times, they lived through the depression. But somehow it becomes ours. And the more that we talk about it, and the more that we believe it and embody it, um, the more that we embody it, that's when we really start living it. And we just tell ourselves the same stories over and over and over again. And it's relentless, just relentless.
And we just have to start, stopping and just making a conscious effort to
Yes.
stop thinking the way
Yeah.
we've always.
Yeah, that
So,
is
what do
that
you?
that that, by the way, is the key to everything. It's all about being present and being conscious, because if you're not conscious of it, you can't do anything to change it. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. So, what do you think, or what does living in the light look like every day for you
So living in the light. A lot of people think that spirituality and all of that comes along with it, and awakening to, you probably have heard conversations about, we're living in a 3D world and everybody's trying to move into the 5D and all of this. And really, it's all based on not just vibration, it's based on frequency. All right. And so a lot of people also tend to think for you to get there, it's about meditation and being deep in that process, and the different spiritual practices that you may have. And certainly that is all true. But to me, all right, spirituality is an everyday thing. It's not that big, huge epiphany that happens when you're deep in meditation. It's what you carry into your everyday life. It's what you carry into that meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning when everybody has faces on and everybody's competitive or whatever. There's anger in the room. And so it's what you carry into the spaces that you're in. It's walking into a grocery store when you're in a super hurry and you've got the line of people in front of you, and then you finally get to the cashier and they're like so low as molasses, and you just want to be all like snippety and everything. No, that's not what it's about. It's carrying your elevated frequency, your good thoughts, your love, your compassion into everyday actions. So you smile at the cashier, you know, um, you stay calm in the crazy meeting. Another example, young parents, might be out with their kids and they are, like crazy, embarrassed and everything else because their kids pitching a tantrum, and they just want to control it and, stop that and everything else, when that child probably only wants to be seen. And so you could actually probably solve the whole situation by just saying, I see you. I know that you're upset. Take a breath with mommy. Let's breathe for a minute. And then later on, or when after we're calm, you can tell me what it's all about. I'll listen to you. And that to me is bringing your spirituality and your awakening and everything into your everyday life.
Now, I know that, you know, being positive, sometimes it comes easy for some people, but sometimes it's not for others. What would you say would be the first step in getting into that particular state of
So getting into that state of mind is always being in the present. It's about presence. It's not about criticizing yourself for the past. All right. There's no blame. All right. The past is the past. You can't do a darn thing about it. So forget about it. It's important to learn from your stories, but that is what they are. They're your stories. They're not necessarily what was reality. All right. Because it's all how we incorporate the emotion into our systems. But the past is the past, so you could forget about that. And the future isn't here yet. So why worry about it? And I'm not saying that you don't plan and you don't, do the things that, secure our future in that sense, but it's the worrying about it that is just such a waste of your time. So if you're present and you take time to pause, in the book I refer to it as the sacred pause, because it really is so important to just allow yourself to be still. Because when we're still, that's when our intuition has a chance to kick in. And, so I actually forgot your question. I apologize for that. Am I answering it?
life? Yes, you are. I was asking about, you know, what how what would be our first step in reaching that particular state
State
where
of mind. Okay. Yeah. And
positive.
so, yeah. And so I will say that it's being in the present, it's being conscious of your thoughts, it's taking moments to pause, and also absolutely super important to take care of you, and put you first. That is not a selfish thing to do. When you put yourself first and you give yourself, that 10 minutes before everybody else rises. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. Or if you're exhausted, you don't go somewhere because you feel like you have to. Take time to be, you know, full of self care, because when you do that, then you show up for other people even in a better way, and relationships get closer and everything else. So a lot of people, especially women, I think, feel like it's selfish to do that, and it's not. So that's another thing that you can do. And always I invite everyone to approach everything with an open heart, and one filled with compassion. And I actually wasn't planning on sharing this at all, but I have a favorite little mantra that I do every day. And if I may, I'd love to share it with you, because this kind of means everything to me on how I feel like everybody can step into um, that place of more love and more compassion. So every morning I say to myself, um, may every sound heard be the sound of consciousness awakening. With every blink of our eyes, may we see that we are all one. With every word spoken, may they be filled with compassion and understanding. With every beat of our hearts, may we learn to love unconditionally. And with every step taken, may the world come closer to peace. And I think that if all of us actually did that, that we would find ourselves in a very, very different place.
Love that. I love that. I actually, and it's a very nice, you know, outlook every start of your day. If you just continue to be in that particular space at the start of your day when you wake up, I think the entire day will just flow through very positively, very smoothly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's nice. Thank you so much for sharing that,
Yeah,
Cheryl.
yeah,
Um,
and, as you were speaking, you made me think. I was on a podcast interview last week, and the host started her day with a very just agitated day, and she was like, what do I do in a case like that? And so that is when I'm going to give you a concrete tip that everybody can do too. It's that the way you start your day, and this is what reminded me of it when you said this, is so important. And a lot of us start our day getting out of bed, another day, I got to do this, I got to do that, and it's just like this little kind of energy. And so one of the best things that you can do for yourself is set the alarm 2 minutes early. That's all, not a lot of time, 2 minutes early, and sit there in bed still and just tell yourself that it's going to be a wonderful day. Say something that that is going to good, that's going to come out of it. Ooh, wow, now I get to see my children again. Or, oh, I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be beautiful sunshine. Something to start your day with that positive energy. And when you hop out of bed, say, it's going to be a great day, because that changes the vibration around you and you carry it into your day. And as you said, nighttime too, you end with a little bit of gratitude for everything good that happened, and it changes everything. And I'm not saying to ignore the bad, but even the bad, when looked at in a good way somehow, finding that one good thing changes the way that we respond to it. And we always have the choice on how we respond. So,
that's awesome.
yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. To wrap things up, what do you think, or what is your hope uh, that your readers will carry through or will be their takeaway from reading your book?
So, again, I wrote the book because I felt like if just one person, if their path, their journey was going to be traveled with ease and grace, and not the bumps and bruises and everything else that I had because I shared my story, then it would have been worth all the all the hours that went into writing it, and getting up the courage, because I was still working on being seen myself. So, it would all be worth it if just one person if one person benefits from it.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm sure there'll be more than one Cheryl. It was really nice speaking with you. What a beautiful, beautiful day and soul nurturing celebration that we had with you. Thank you so much for sharing your lights and guiding us through your powerful journey of healing and awakening. And to everyone tuning in, everybody that's listening out there, Voices Stepping Out of the Darkness and Into the Light is now officially available as an ebook on Amazon starting today. So if your soul has been searching for clarity, connection, and courage, this is the companion you've been waiting for. So go ahead and grab a copy and let your journey begin. Thank you so much again, Cheryl. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you too.
All right. Bye bye now.